But before that, I am a parent. I have a son that is 20, and his name is Tucker. I'll show you a picture of him. Look at that handsome boy. Could he be any cuter?
No.
I think not. I agree. So Tucker was born 3 months early. He spent the first 4 months of his life in the NICU, and he had a very traumatic birth experience. We both did, actually. And so he has a resulting brain injury from his early birth. He has cerebral palsy. He's full-time care. Come on in, girls. No, we're just starting. There's a sign-in sheet and a PowerPoint over here. Okay, so we'll grab one for you. So we're just kind of getting to know each other. So you're fine.
Am I going to be okay?
You're going to be just fine. Look.
I didn't want to be in the way.
You are in good shape. No, no, no. No one's in the way in here. So, so like I said before, Tucker's 20 now. I can't believe he just turned 20. But we learned about Tucker's diagnosis pretty quickly after he was born. We spent those first 4 months in the NICU just trying to really keep him alive and learn about what our new life was going to be like. And we also had an older daughter that was 5 at the time, and have an older daughter. She was 5 at the time. And so also kind of balancing her needs, and then us being gone all the time, and having a baby in the NICU, you don't get to bond with your baby the same way. So I was pumping, trying to keep my milk in. That stuff was like liquid gold. You know, I'd take my teeny tiny little bag in every day, and my teeny tiny little bit of milk that I could get, because it was like an act of Congress to bond with a pump. And so I would take it in every day. It was just like the only thing I could do, I felt like, to help keep my baby alive. And so it was a really important part of that. Well, anyway, where I'm going with all of that is so those 4 months that we spent there were 4 months of really just surviving, and we were in literally survival mode. There's really not a lot of else that can happen. Our entire family was in that mode. So thinking about that Tucker might have some kind of a long-term disability as a result of his early birth and this experience was in the back of our minds, but not in the front. So when we were thinking about diagnosis, it really was secondary for us at that season of our life. We were still in, let's live, let's get out of here and get home and figure out what's next after that. So the last day we were at the NICU, our neonatologist that we had come to love dearly came in and said, hey, let's do a head ultrasound for the road. In other words, all along this 4-month journey, Tucker's head ultrasounds had all come back very normal, so there was no evidence of any kind of brain injury, any kind of bleed. So we were feeling very confident. So here we are, we're getting ready to go home. And the last day, and he walks back in and he is white. I mean, just white. Because we had gotten to know these folks. I mean, they were like our family. We loved them. I mean, we just were really, really, we felt a real affinity for the staff at the hospital. And they did for us too, because they were like rooting for him. And so anyway, so he walks in, he sat down on the bed with us, and he said, well, it didn't come back normal. And he said, it shows that there is some evidence of a brain injury. That was what he said that day. But let's follow up with a neurologist in 2 months. It's not anything degenerative. He won't need surgery for it. He may have some trouble with his legs later on. That was all he said to us that day. So really, it was kind of like you know that feeling you get when you learn something really bad where your belly goes, you know that feeling? Well, obviously we felt that, and then we left and we went home, and we just really tried to stay as normal as we possibly could and continue to bond with him. So we were home for 2 weeks, and we had to go into the pediatrician's office for weight checks. So we went into our regular pediatrician's office 2 weeks, and I went by myself with Tucker. Big mistake. So here we are, you know, once again, I'm sleep deprived, everything deprived, hormone deprived, you know, completely. I think I was probably even losing my hair at that point in time. You know, it was just craziness. And pediatrician just looked at me and he goes, Janna, really matter of fact, like he was telling me about pork chops on salad fries. It wasn't about like this could be the rest of our lives. He just goes, Janna, when Tucker got that head ultrasound, the evidence on there, that said 95% chance he's going to have cerebral palsy. You realize that, don't you? I was like, no, I don't even know, once again, we were brand new parents. I mean, I think I was 28 years old, and I just remember going, I don't really know what you're talking about, and I started crying, obviously, and I scooped him up and took him home. So we got home, and of course my husband's asking me, and he's like, Janna, just, he doesn't know, he's just guessing, so we enter into the denial phase. He was like, he's going to be fine, remember what they told us, their brains are very, very flexible, he has lots and lots of time to heal. So we went there in our head for a while, and then we saw that, that neurology appointment that the neonatologist told us about to go to 2 months later. So we went to that appointment. So here we are, we're in this neurology appointment, and the neurologist was probably had about as much personality as this chair, and he had a neuromuscular disease himself. He's very, very smart. So I trusted him, but I didn't really like him. You know that feeling, you know the difference. So we're sitting there, and he's looking at Tucker's films, and he goes, oh yeah, these look really bad. And and he just looked at me, he goes, kids, I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know what to tell you. He goes, just take him home and love him, and we'll talk again in a couple months. So that was our experience of finding out that's how our diagnosis was, revealed to us, and it kind of happened over a period of time. So needless to say, that very day, I remember everything about it. And I know those of you that are parents too, remember the day that you learned about your diagnosis with your child. And it's a moment that is marked in time. You will never forget. I remember what I was wearing. I remember the way the room smelled. I remember that position. I remember what my husband had on. And I remember we walked out of there, and Tucker was in his carrier, and we walked out, and my husband said to me, he goes, that doctor's going to go have lunch, and our lives are changed forever after that conversation. And so I think that when families are experiencing that, when we experience that definite mark in time of when our child has this diagnosis that we know is going to profoundly change their life and your life, we need to take a minute. There's a realness in realness. I'm going to make up words as we go today. Just go with me on it. But there's a realness in that, and having to be able to take a minute and digest that and allow yourself to get your head around it in whatever way you need to do that. And I think it's really helpful to those of you that work with families, if you know of a family that hasn't had that opportunity yet, that they're still in information gathering mode, that it is all about your baby. Listen, you're going to do that all day long today. So that when we're in that information gathering mode, that we're still in survival mode. And so sometimes, so I'm going to talk about that too here in a minute. But goodness, give yourselves a chance to let it settle in and feel sad about it, and allow yourself to feel sad about it, because it is jacked and it's not fair, but that's okay, because it doesn't mean it's going to last forever, and that sadness isn't going to last forever. I can tell you something really sweet, and that is that young man up there has changed our lives as a family profoundly. He has made us better people. We are better human beings as a result of Tucker. Our daughters, we have a younger daughter that was born 2.5 years after Tucker, which is a whole other story, because my husband had a vasectomy. Hello, yeah, happened. Yeah. My doctor's like, you shouldn't have any more kids. You've had this horrible preeclampsia, blah, blah, blah. So my husband had a vasectomy 2.5 years later. We're getting ready to have dinner with my husband's parents, and I'm like, I feel like a glass of wine. And my mother-in-law looked at me, she goes, isn't it weird how mother-in-laws have this weird way of like knowing you, and you're like, that's creepy weird, I don't like it. But she made me go down to Walgreens and buy a stick, and I was pregnant. And I was like, what is happening? Anyway, that's all. So we have Sydney too. But our girls are better because of tell you, they will tell you that they look at life through a different lens because of him. They appreciate things more. They have a wisdom that goes deeper than most other girls their age. They choose their friends wiser. If they're around kids that are offensive and rude, they don't hang out with them. They just don't. They don't waste their time on it. And so that's a blessing. We have stronger human beings in our family because of him. So that's a little bit about Tucker. I want to share, and we're going to talk also about.
Did you say he's 20?
He's 20. Can you believe that?
I can't. You don't look like you're very much older than
Bless your heart. I would kiss you on the mouth if I could. Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm glad we have boundaries.
I know, right? I won't. I'll give you a kiss. So I have an older daughter. She's 24. Tucker's 20 and my youngest daughter's 16. She's driving. We bought her car this past weekend. Can I just stab myself in the head right now and then we'll move on? Okay, let's talk about, I want to spend a few minutes talking about peers, okay? Before we jump into our learning objectives, because this is going to be part of the whole conversation. So when we think about what we're afraid of, okay, it's time to be real, girls, okay? So let's be real. So what are we really afraid of? What is it that we're really, really afraid of? Can you share? Can I tell you what some of the things I was afraid of?
Sure.
Okay, I'll share with you some of the things I was really afraid of. I was afraid, number one, I was afraid that kids would make fun of Tucker, that kids would be mean. And make fun of him. That was a very real thing for me. I was also afraid because Tucker is non-ambulatory, he's a chair user all the time. I was so worried that when he started school, that he would be parked in a corner and no one would talk to him. I'm saying harsh things
Isolated.
because I felt it. Yeah, it's wrong, but I felt it, so it's real. So I was very afraid that he would get parked, and I'm going to say that because it scared me, somewhere away from everyone, or turned away because he couldn't turn his chair, and that jacked me up for a long time. I was also afraid of this.
I'm afraid of that right now.
Right? I know we're afraid of it with our typical kids, but with our special needs kids, I was super worried about that. Anything else, you guys?
I'm afraid about my son's adult life. What is his capability? Level? Is he gonna live with me for the rest of his life? Is he
Yes.
going to have that normal life?
The future. That future. Scary, scary.
He's 8 now, so
See? It's so scary. Listen, when Tucker was 8, actually, no, when he was younger than 8. I would say when he was probably 4. My husband and I had like this aha moment when he was 4 because he was getting ready to start kindergarten. He was getting ready to do the all-day kindergarten after that. And the thought of his teeny tiny little body in his teeny tiny little wheelchair sitting on a bus and driving away from me was like almost more than my heart could bear. It just was really, really hard for me. We looked at each other one day and said, we are not going to do this anymore. We are only going to take it a day at a time. So we took a picture of a waffle. We're the weirdest family on the planet. But we did. We took a picture of a waffle and we said, see those squares in that waffle? Every square of that waffle is a day. So that's what we're going to do. So today, like today, right now, I'm with you guys. I'm with you 100%. I'm in it. And that's the way we're going to choose to live every single day. Because if we live constantly worrying about this, because we did, then you miss the sweet of today. If I was worried about the fact that I'm going to have transition planning at school where he's going to do a life skill program on a whole nother campus, and I know he doesn't want to go, I couldn't fully be present with you guys, and I would miss it. So you see what I'm saying. So same kind of thing, thinking about that. Waffles, feel free to use that. You know, if every time you look at a waffle, think that's square, I'm thinking about that, that's it. If that's my glass of wine and I'm thinking about that, that's it, then we're gonna do it. Okay. What else? What are some other things we're afraid of? No,
I'm not a parent, but I'd say two of my biggest fears of if I ever have the chance to be one would be what happens like from the adult life, like my independence, like
About
during
me.
having a child and then after you let them go. But then also what I would do like wrong, like when they're growing up, like am I doing this right? Am I doing that right?
Wow,
Like,
yeah. Oh, can I do this? Right? Can I even do this? What were you thinking, God? No, can I do it? What else? What if I make a mistake? What if I jack this kid up? Oops, mistake. Sorry,
You did that on purpose.
I did.
Yeah.
So it was right, mistake.
I think about whether or not I should be working or being home all the time because he has therapy appointments and we run everywhere after school. I mean, it's hard because I feel like I have to pick and choose and.
Balancing.
I mean, I'm a teacher, he's in my class this year, so.
Are you on crack? You need to not do that.
It works. I mean, I'm getting him all day, but at the same time, still,
It's
we have to.
And you know him better than anyone else in the world. So yeah, that's awesome. But balancing this, yeah. Ooh, should I be working? Should we have more professionals in our home helping us? That's hard. How about this? Do you guys ever worry about this one? Or yeah, I don't know if you have it going on, but I worried about my girls.
Yeah, something like other kids.
Yeah, I worried that, especially with my oldest daughter, because like I said before, when Lydia was 5, that was the year Tucker was born. So thankfully she was 5. So she was past potty training, she was talking like a fiend in kindergarten, really, really happy and settled. But Lydia thought she was the ruler of the free world. So whenever Tucker came along and consumed that other bedroom that was her playroom, I'll never forget seeing her standing there with her little hands on her hip, looking in that room going, I don't like him. Can we send him back? Like, this was my fun room, and now he's taking it over with his stuff. So yeah, sibling. And his room looked different too, because it wasn't like a typical baby room, it was like a therapy room. I did that for a long time. I lived in that for a really, really long time.
I think the other, I don't know if it's a fear, but it's, not knowing like what resources, what
Yes.
services, like you don't even know
Yes.
what's out there
Yes.
and you're kind of just,
Will I miss something important?
yeah, you're just like, I don't even know where to go, or you know your child needs something, but you don't know what, because it's so out of your
Oh,
realm.
yes. Ah, that's so scary. What if he should be doing hippotherapy instead of PT? Would he be making more progress? Would have been better on his hips? Do we not have him in his braces long enough? All those kinds of things. Yes, good. What else?
My other one is a waffle thing too, but I just struggle with what, my child being vulnerable when I'm not here anymore.
Yes. Oh, let's see. When I'm not around, or even when you're not here anymore, but even when you're just not around. Ooh, okay, this is good. Let's talk about these now for a minute. You guys have anything else before we keep going? Okay.
We're going to have the talking healing classroom and communication. Don't communicate and
Can they express themselves? If they're hungry, if they're thirsty, if they're sad. Okay, this is a
my
big
mom
one for me.
coming out and like being done and everything, but I really worry.
That they're not
That would be
able
my
to
worry to express.
their wants, their
Yes.
needs, and their preferences. I think that's another thing. A lot of times we focus on their needs, but what are their preferences? What if they don't like that kid that sits next to them? A lot of times, we do that with our kids that have special needs, that they're placed. They don't get to pick. You see the difference. Like if my oldest daughter didn't like a group of the girls that she was sitting with in the cafeteria at lunchtime, she wouldn't hang out with them anymore. Tucker has to hang out with those certain kids. What if he doesn't like one of them? What if one of them bugs him?
Or is mean to me.
It's mean to him. Yeah, that worried me too. So we did spend a lot of time talking to him about, what makes him feel comfortable and safe. So yes, absolutely. Communication is a big thing. Tucker didn't talk till he was 5. So we were getting ready to order an augmentative communication device. He was hardly talking at all, but he was listening and we could tell. He was definitely, his receptive language was just very, very on. But there was a point in time one day when my husband was in the kitchen and he was cutting a piece of chocolate cake, and Tucker goes, "I want a piece of chocolate cake." It was a whole sentence, and he was 5 years old. I know, so my husband goes like this. Okay. Of course, what do I do as the mom? Oh, I run out of the room crying because, it was the very first sentence he ever said. So that's a huge deal. But we were so worried too that if he couldn't articulate his wants and needs. I remember when he was in about, let's see, okay, he's a super senior now. That means he's been in school for a long time. But when we started at Campo Verde, he has a new teacher, and he was probably in 9th grade, I guess is when it was, and she was able to figure out a way to measure his reading level where no other teacher was able to test him in such a way that we were able to get an accurate reading level for him. And I remember sitting in the IEP meeting crying because we had never been able to really measure where he was at. And I thought, she was a genius. She was an absolute genius because she was able to figure that out for him so that we could get an accurate. But I also remember feeling like too, okay, I can relax a little because he can read. And that was a really, really big deal. He may not be able to count, he can, but not great. His math is really, really hard for him. His intellect is very splintered, but he can read and he can talk. And that was a really, really big deal. It was really important. I felt better. That made me feel a little bit better. So, okay, now let's talk. We talked about these fears, and they're real. But now I want to talk a little bit about some things that will help us feel better. And one of them is self-care. How many of you guys are taking care of yourselves? And I'm going to hear a resounding no, because you are in the mode of caring for everybody else in your house. So, and I have been doing this long enough to know that it is really, really hard to take time for yourself. And when people come and they say things like, you should be exercising, you should be eating better, you should be doing all these things, that is almost impossible. It is just almost impossible. So our self-care needs to come from a different place. It needs to come from somewhere deep within you that makes you genuinely feel better. It can't be something that you have to go do. It needs to be something that you've thought through that makes you genuinely feel better. And if that means surrounding yourself with things that comfort you, then that's what that means. So let's talk about that for 1 minute. Do you see, hey you guys, do you know where this is? Does anybody give me a guess? You can think where this is.
That's where I'm near Payson.
Think it's near Payson? Sedona? Okay. I grew up in East Tennessee.
I was gonna say, there's nowhere that green and pretty here.
Exactly.
That's Arizona?
I know. That is not Arizona. That is East Tennessee. I grew up on a dairy farm in East Tennessee, and I had a really, really amazing childhood, I have to say. Well, one of the things that was my favorite place in all the world is the Tellico River, and that is in the mountains in East Tennessee, really, really near our home that I grew up at. So my dad still lives there, and so every year when we try to go back, we don't get to go every year because that's almost impossible, but as often as we can, we go to the Tellico River. There's this little restaurant called the Tellico Beach Drive-In. So if you go there, you drive up, there's no tables inside, there's no inside eating here, and on the other side of this, there is this beautiful river, this beautiful mountain river that's right on the other side of this. And this is the bridge right here, and then the river goes up into the mountains. So it's like this. So over on this side of this building, there are picnic tables, and they have the best chili dogs in the free world with coleslaw on them. Have y'all ever had that? A chili dog. Oh, she's like, okay. A chili dog with coleslaw on it. I could eat it right now. Oh my gosh, it's the most delicious thing in the world. Is it heart healthy? No. Would Dr. Oz say it was good for you? No. Do they probably buy all that junk local? Yes. And I guarantee you there is a lady in the back cutting up the slaw. I mean, it is that not good for you. But it is so delicious, and it is very comforting for me. Now, anybody else? Probably not. My husband's always like, every time I'm like, we gotta go to the beach, we gotta go, because they call it the Telco Beach Drive-In. We gotta make sure we carve out time to go to the beach, and he's always like, I don't know why you love that place so much. I don't understand. It is real. It's very comforting for me to go and get those hot dogs and sit there and, hear the river going by, and it's just magical for me. And once again, that's the beauty of you going deep inside you and finding that really, really special place or moment in your life where you felt very, very comforted. I'm not talking about happy. Comforted and happy are two entirely different things, right? Because you can feel happy. I can feel happy at Peter Piper Pizza watching my kids. Am I feeling comforted? Probably not. I probably need a Xanax salt lick in there. It's not going to happen. So, but here, I feel comforted. This is so, I can do this now. I can do this. So I want you to do that. I want you to take some time and think about those things that make you genuinely feel comforted deep within you. Now, so we talked about self-care, and that's all about being comforted. Because I've gone to 200,000 conferences that talk about self-care, and they talk about deep breathing and meditation and eating healthy and getting exercise, and all those things are very real. But our reality is a little different. And a lot of times we can't squish that in, and then what does that create for us when we know we're not squishing in things that we feel like we're supposed to do? Thank you. That's what we want to avoid. Because if we feel like we're not doing something right, we get more of that. Oh my gosh. We're going to have, so I didn't do the things I was supposed to do to make me feel better, so now my stress and anxiety goes up even more. And it makes these things bigger when you feel stressed, because they become bigger and amplified. So think about that. Okay, I want to talk about gathering information. So when you guys signed up to come to this training, you came up because you knew that this was a good time to get some information that was credible, reliable, and relevant for you, right? Absolutely, yeah, that's why you're here. That's why we're investing in Saturday morning, when we obviously all rather be at Hobby Lobby shopping or doing something like that. But we're not. We have something else going on in our life that's causing us to be in a different season where we need to gather information. I think it's human nature. When we first learned, I know for me, when I first learned about Tucker's diagnosis, I became the gatherer. I was like at the library and trying to check out books. And listen, some of the books about kids with CP were really yucky when 20 years ago. There was not a lot of happy reading going on. And some of it was helpful, but a lot of it wasn't, to be honest with you. It really, really wasn't. A lot of what we've learned over the years that has really helped us about information has been really genuinely getting to know Tucker. Really, that's the reality of it, is getting to know him and helping us balance what are the things that we need to do to not foster learned helplessness, because we want to mother him, just like what you were just sharing a minute ago, because let's face it, you guys saw him a few minutes ago. He's a beautiful child. When he was little, he was so adorable, and he just, like, his providers wanted to just do everything for him. And so we did, for a long, long time, foster a lot of that learned helplessness. He became the prince of the Murrell household, and his sisters were like, he is so spoiled. He's not doing anything for himself. So that was a time where we were like, whoa, we need to shut it down a little bit. That's all about just balance, figuring it out as you go as the years go on. So when you're in information gathering mode, there is a lot of information out there specific to autism-related disorders. A lot of information about therapy, philosophies, right? So how do you, as a family, seek out what you feel is best for your child? Because not every philosophy works for every single child. Just like like not every hairdresser works for every single lady or man or whatever. I know I'm making that sound really shallow, so forgive me for that, but you guys see where I'm going with it. The reality is that our kids are all different and they learn differently. And so whenever you, like what you just shared a moment ago, you're his teacher, you're his mom, you're his teacher, you're his mom, you will be forever. We are all that. We will be forever. So we know as a result of that, you know your kids better than anybody else in the world. You do have providers in their life that know them very, very well and may see things that you don't because they can look at your child through a different lens and have that ability to do that. And I'm going to talk about that some more here in a minute because I really want to spend a few minutes on that. But while you're out there gathering information, how many of you immediately went online and looked for like information on, on the internet? Be honest. Thank you. Well, that's our first place we go. We don't go to Encyclopedia Britannica like we did 25 years ago. I mean, now we go online. Well, a lot of times what happens is information that gets online is information from everywhere. And it's not always credible and reliable. So you as parents, when you're out there and you're seeking this very important information for your child, make sure that you're taking the time to not only look for information, but you're vetting your resources carefully. And there are very specific ways to do that by sticking with some of the websites that are .gov. A lot of times healthcare websites are, and if you get into .coms and .orgs, it can get a little scary. So just really, really be cautious of that and be mindful of vetting your resources very, very carefully. The other thing that I want you to consider is a lot of families seek comfort in chat rooms and social media. And that's very real. And there are a lot of times families can get a lot of good information and socialization and comfort from that. The other beware I want to share with you is be careful, because sometimes chat rooms can also be a place for predators, not just sexual predators, that are after our kids, but they can be predators after the vulnerability that's within you. Because you're looking for information, and sometimes people can give and solicit information from you that makes us vulnerable. We can be sharing personal information that can reveal who you are and reveal too much information about your child. So just be really, really cautious of that. I am way old-fashioned. I think I was born 100 years too late because I don't really like social media. It makes me nervous. I feel like I'm naked. I just don't like it at all. I feel like it's really, really intrusive, but that's just me. I mean, my girls love it, and all of these crazy gals I work with and guys that work in here, they love that stuff, but I'm just constantly saying, oh, be careful, because how many times do you hear, oh, this guy found this person, oh, these people were targeted, or we got this information on. Let's just be really, really, really careful about that. And sharing personal information about you and your child online when we're looking for information. So if you're looking for some kind of support or even socialization, there are organizations that do that vetting for you. Raising Special Kids is one of them. AZA United is one of them because they offer family support groups. Those are places where we've done that work for you. Trust that. And be really, really wary of that. Oh, God. Okay, we got a blaze. Goodness gracious. Okay, build your team. I love thinking about this because the reality in the world that we live in today is that Arizona, I know this is going to shock you, but Arizona is a leader in offering home and community-based services to individuals with developmental disabilities. I know that sounds shocking, but it's true. Arizona operates under a Medicaid waiver program, so our kids are just becoming eligible. They're not on a wait list, whereas in a lot of states they are, the majority of the states they are, and we have these home and community-based services that is very, very, that isn't out there for every. A lot of us get really frustrated with DDD and providers and things like that. But if we dial it all back and we look at the reality is that at some point in that person's life, they made a decision to make it their life's work to serve families. There's good in that. So it's your role as a parent to build your team with the people that you know and trust, and realize that as they are brought into your team, that you also have the ability to hire and fire, for lack of a better term. So if it's not a good fit, and it may not be because they don't have the level of expertise that you like, but maybe it's just weird and you just don't connect, that's okay. You can say, this isn't working, and that's okay. No harm, no foul. We move on, because chances are maybe that therapist doesn't feel the same way. So the beauty of it is that you have the authority to do that. You have the authority to build your team of people that you feel are the best for your family, that fit with your whole family, not just your child. Because sometimes, you remember, you still got to communicate with those people too, not just your child. So make sure that it's a good fit. And you guys know what those things are. I mean, I could go on and on about how to pick a provider, but you guys know that. Trust your instinct and build from that, and foster openness and trust and respect with those providers. So when they're sharing information with you about your child, so say for example, you have a provider that's been working with your child for quite some time. You've developed a relationship with them. You trust them, right? And they have an insight into your child about something that's going on. And it may not be always pretty. There was a time, one time I had a school psychologist told me something about Tucker. I wanted to punch her in the face. But the reality was she was right. And I had to really realize, I was like, she's right. Because my husband said, and doggone it, when he's right and I'm wrong, I hate that. But he was like, well, is there a shred of truth to what she said? And I said, yes, there was. Not that we always want to hear it. So just remember, think about that too, is those people that you pick and you trust, and they have that level of expertise from all the years and experience that they've had, trust that. And build on that open communication. Ask questions. If you don't agree, ask questions. Help me understand that. Tell me why you feel that way. And that will go a really, really long way to appreciate, and tell them you appreciate them. That's another big thing, is when we remind people that we appreciate the time they've invested in our kid and our family, that goes a really, really long way too. I'm not talking about just cookies, because we can do that all day long too, but it's just that I appreciate you so much. Yesterday, my support coordinator left my house. We had a 2-hour meeting, and I hugged her because I was like, thank you. I mean, she coordinates all that junk. I'm having a home modification done on the front of our house right now. She's done all that, and I want to thank her. I need her. So, okay, and now I know we're dying on time, but we're just gonna try to keep going until somebody comes in and stops us. So, and we've only got 2 more slides, then we're done. Hey, how many of you guys have a laundry basket or some kind of basket in your house that's full of papers and unopened mail and ISPs and IEPs, and yeah, all of us, we do, don't we? Okay, spend 2 Saturdays getting organized with that junk. That will lighten this load right over here like you would not believe. And if that means you hire a provider to come while you're there, do it. Make some notebooks. Don't keep every year of IEPs in one notebook. Have 1 year that you keep all your current stuff in. Archive all that. Have some space in your house where you don't have to carry all the binder all the time. Tucker's 20 now. I could probably have a carbon footprint on the planet that will last for generations to come. But just keep your current year stuff in one notebook. Have your one notebook that's your one go-to. It keeps all your most current stuff, and then file that other stuff away. Take a minute and get this organized, because that will really, really help cut down on your stress. Because if not, you will miss appointments, because appointment notices will get buried. I did that. You'll miss appointments, you'll be late, it creates anxiety for everybody. And tell me about, do you guys have the 5 o'clock bewitching hour at your house? Do you know what that is?
Not usually called by that.
Yes. Well, it's like dinner hour. Dinner. It's like dinner time. Before I went back to work, I was home for a while with my kids. And when it was dinner time, that was what we call the bewitching hour. It was the high level of stress, because you're coming and going. Somebody's at piano, somebody needs to go here. Tucker's got a therapist in and out of the house. You're trying to make dinner, the phone's ringing. My mom's showing up at the door going, let me in this house. Crazy stuff like that is going on at the bewitching hour. So when you identify times of your day that everyone knows. It's not rocket science. These are our high levels of stress time. Don't do stuff during that time. If your phone rings, let it ring. Ignore your phone. Just focus on what you have to focus on during those high level of stress times in your day. And that will really, really help. All that stuff can wait. That is something else too. Is just remember, nothing is that urgent unless they're dying or bleeding to death. So, if it's other stuff that's going on that can be important, but it's not that important to where you're bumping upside the head, stressed out because you're trying to do it all and manage this child that has this high level of needs too going on. Okay. Now, the last thing, because I know we're done, is take a breath. And there will come a season in your life when you have taken in so much information and support and wisdom that you've learned over the years, that you individually have learned, that there will come a point in time where you will need to give back in some way. And I don't know what that is, and you may not know, you may know, but there will come a time, and I highly recommend you take advantage of it. Because giving back, and if that means just talking to another young parent that's got a child with a brand new diagnosis, that means you just want to, whatever that is, there's a myriad of ways that as a parent, over the years of the information that you learn, even if just a few years, you realize you're on a fast track to learning stuff. And you get really, really resilient at it and really smart. And that wisdom is golden, that nobody else can get except through life experience. Shared life experience is more valuable. There's so many studies that have been done is when people are seeking support from someone, whenever they're going through something very traumatic in their life, they will seek support from someone that has gone through the same thing. They are not even related. You may not ever go to your mom for support, but you will probably come to me or go to each other or something like that, and we've never met. I remember approaching a lady in a car wash, and she looked at me like, I was like, how's your child? I could tell the child was in one of those teeny tiny little wheelchairs, and so I immediately felt this affinity to her. And we got it, because you just do. And because then we're the same people, we get it. And that's good. So take advantage of that. Get to a point where you can start giving some of that back. It's healing for you, and it gives purpose to what you've been through. That's the big thing. Because at the end of the day, because we're worried so much about all of this stuff, we want to see some purpose in it, right? Like, geez, what else? This is what we can gain from it. Okay. Sorry guys, I feel like we blazed through that so fast. Do you guys have any questions or anything like that? Anything we want to talk about before I have to let you go? I don't want to. Okay, I'm going to share with you one more thing then while we're leaving. There is some work being done by the Institute for Human Development up at NAU, and it's a work group. A bunch of research students are working on developing a webinar on how to vet resources online. Like when we go online and start looking for stuff, and how to do that in a very, very reliable way. And they're investing some time in that. So keep an eye out, watch our website, because we do post that kind of stuff on our website too. So if that's something that you feel like, you want to get some more information on, I wanted to kind of give you a heads up that that's kind of coming down the pike. I think it's really interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Can you just tell me a little bit more about what raising special kids does right there?
Yeah, we talked about that in the very beginning. So let's finish. No, you're fine. You're totally fine. What we do is we help parents navigate systems. So if you have a child with a new diagnosis and the eligibility determination hasn't been made, or you have private insurance, or you may have both, we help navigate that. We also help with the problem solving, anything that has to do with healthcare and litigation. We help with facilitating family-to-family connections, parent-to-parent connections. So if you want to talk to another parent, then we facilitate that. The parent has gone through a training, so it's not a rogue connection. It's very, very controlled. We evaluate it and make sure that it's helpful for the family. And then we also help families understand IDEA law. That's special education law. So many of our kids are in special ed at school, school, and so we help families understand their rights and responsibilities under special education. And we are not advocates. What we do here is we train parents how to advocate for themselves in a positive way. So kind of in a nutshell, but problem solving, really, that's the biggest thing that we do. We help families.
So we would just call in if we had questions.
Absolutely, everything's at no charge. And yeah, we get the gamut of questions, trust me. I have pretty much heard it all. I mean, I'm not even kidding. There's been some doozies. I even had one this past week. It was really, really rough. Sometimes parents will call too from other states, and they're looking for information about what are things like in Arizona. And so, even if you're considering moving, we can tell you about that state, what their services look like, who their parent center is, and that sort of thing too. So hopefully that helps.
Tapping into the resource.
Listen, I started too as a parent where someone gave me a packet for raising special kids when Tucker was born. It used to be called Pilot Parents. And I shoved it in the closet with 100 other packets that we got when we left the NICU. And I didn't pay any attention to it until years later. And I was cleaning out his closet. And I called and I was like, I don't know what you guys do, but I have your packet. And the lady just said to me, she said, well, tell me about your child. So I started telling her. She said, well, do you want to talk to another mom? I said, yeah. So she gave me the phone number to this lady, and I called her, and she had a son that was a little bit older than Tucker. And it was like magic. I felt so much better. I thought I was going crazy before I talked to her. We only talked on the phone a couple of times, but it was like, oh yeah. She said, and this happened, and this is how we handle this, and this, and I thought, oh wow, because we have nobody in our lives that were going through what we were going through. Nobody. So it was really, really helpful for me. But then a couple years after that, that's whenever I started volunteering here. I knew then that was my exhale time. I had to start. I feel like, I'm doing this for a minute. I can figure it out now. When you live in your minivan and all your other kids are sustaining life on McDonald's, Happy Meals, going to therapy 100 times a week, and yeah, it's good times. My oldest daughter one time said to me, we left McDonald's once again after going to therapy for the 3rd time that week. And she looked at me and she had this little toy from the McDonald's Happy Meal. She said, Mom, I have 3 of these. And they rotate. So that meant she had like 15 of the whole set, Anyway, it was so cute. So let me know if you guys need anything, and I hope it was helpful for you. And we're definitely here to help too. So just let us know. And we do have other training classes too for families that you can come to. And they're usually in the evenings or Saturdays.
Is that on your website?
They are positive behavior, legal options, IEP training, those kinds of trainings. So they're all on here.
Is all your training done down here?
Say that again?
Is it all done down here?
We do some here, we do some in northern Arizona, we do some in southern, and some in Yuma. Yeah, we're statewide, so we provide support for families all over the state.
But in the Phoenix area, do you do it in downtown Phoenix, or do you have other areas like out in the valley or all?
We primarily do them here in this room, or we sometimes we'll partner with like Peoria, city of Peoria. Sometimes we'll have one out there from time to time. It just depends. Usually we just offer them here. But if there's a group of families and we need to go to them, we will. We'll go wherever the need's at. We'll go to school districts. We do a lot of training for the Gilbert School District or Peoria School District. That's like a parent professional. We do parent professional collaboration. And that's another really, really good one too, because it helps bridge your collaboration skills and how to collaborate with your team. We teach you how to facilitate a team meeting. That's a really good skill to have. And it's helpful. I wish I had that kind of stuff when Tucker was littler. But now that he's older, it's very, very helpful. So we can help you do that. And again, it's all based on a very positive lens. So whenever you're collaborating with your team, it comes from a place where we're team building. Because so many families, they're mad. And they've had bad experiences. And so we help them work through it too. Where we can get to problem solving mode. When you're mad, you can't problem solve anymore. So you're just mad. And I'm just mad. And that's all I can think about. Okay, I think we have to be done. Go. Okay. Come on in, girls. You're fine, you're fine. How's our schedule?
You know, I think I'll just leave it.